Welcome back to Secrets of the Sire. We talk comics, movies, TV, pop culture, and music every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. So really thrilled with our next guest. We have the bassist Will Turpin from Collective Soul joining us. Will, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, doing good, man.
It's a thrill having you on. Loved your band for a long time now. Ironically enough, I didn't get into you guys as much in '94 when you guys kind of like broke big. Got into you a little bit later. Kind of discovered your CDs, and when I was in college a few years later, and it became like one of those theme tracks to my senior year of college. So I have hints and allegations and things left unsaid are just it was like a soundtrack to my senior year. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's 25 years for Collective Soul now. I mean, we were, I was in my senior year of college and we got signed to Atlantic Records. But yeah, 25 years later, you get a perspective where you don't really take it lightly that people have allowed Collective Soul to become the soundtrack to their lives or their memories or their greatest moments.
Yeah, no, and it really, I mean, it's so amazing to me. It really is just, how lucky and fortunate I am to kind of talk to you guys. But it's also just a testament to your guys' music, as well, that, 25 years later, you guys are still, as strong as ever.
Yeah, we feel that way. We definitely, when we get together and create right now, I still get those moments where, the hair stands up on my arm and I'm like, okay, that's it. Music is kind of like one of the last kind of magics in the world, really. I mean, it can heal you. It's a tangible energy that can do so many things for humans, and we still, it boils down to emotion, kind of. And when it's right, we still get that feeling when it's right that we've always had for 25 years now.
Very cool. I want to get into your past a little bit, but I want to start with the new record. The new record's Blood. It's been out. It's called Blood. It's been out for a few months now. When I got my hands on it, the thing that struck me, and my co-host, who's not on this particular recording, is like, "Don't insult him." I said, "No, this is not an insult. This is actually a really good thing." I feel like it could be in 1999 or 2019. Like I feel like this record could be. I could have picked this up anywhere, and I actually don't mean to say that it's dated. I mean, it just fits so nicely in what you guys have done that it just feels like vintage Collective Soul. What do you guys feel about the record?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of close friends who are musicians who give us those kind of insights and their opinions, as well as people like you that are in the industry that take the time to listen to everything out there. But yeah, we've kind of heard that a couple times. Like, man, this sounds fresh, crisp. It sounds like it could be 2019, but it also sounds a little bit like it would have been fresh and crisp in 1999 too. So I kind of know what you're saying there, but
yeah.
I mean, from our perspective, the creators, like for us, it's just try not to overanalyze too much and do what feels right to us and go with that,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the tracks. So the standout track for me was "Right as Rain." I love how conflicted E feels in that song about the contemporary world. What tracks are you guys really jamming out these days when you're playing live?
Yeah, Right as Rain comes off really easy, and we love playing that song live. Matter of fact, that's probably the oldest song on the CD because we played it on tour all through 2018. That whole summer, we went ahead and played that song live. We enjoy playing Crushed. That's a cool rhythmical juxtaposition that Johnny Rabb kind of started, and then I get to be part of that, and we get to play all around the beat. So I love Crushed. As far as overall themes and overall songs, I'm a sucker for the smooth pop riders, kind of like Big Sky. I always thought Big Sky was great. Love the theme and the idea of that song.
Funny you mentioned that was actually playing right before you called, because I'm listening to the record right before you guys jumped on here, and it's got such a great hook to it that it's still in my head right now as we're talking. So it's kind of funny you point that one out.
Yeah, and it's just a simple theme. There's something bigger out there than us.
Yeah, a lot of your music too. I mean, it has a spiritual edge to it, or a spiritual not edge. It's not the right word, but a spiritual tone to it. But it doesn't feel inaccessible. Is that something you guys?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a good way to say it. Inaccessible. Yeah, we never wanted. We grew up Christians. Ed and Dean's father was a minister. Ed and Dean's father was one of my first music directors.
Mm-hmm.
He was choir director at the church when I was a kid. But we grew up Christians, but we never wanted our music or anything we did to be inaccessible to somebody else from another religion or something, so that was kind of a big deal for us to, we have a Christian background and we were all Christians, but we don't want our music pigeonholed and labeled as Christian
Mm-hmm.
music. We want, and I think Jesus would say the same thing. I think he would want everybody, all the little children of the world,
Yeah. No, absolutely. This one's a very personal record for E as well, too, because I know there was issues with his sister and his wife having to deal with certain things. Do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, lyrically, I think Ed, to me, lyrically, this Blood as a whole, Ed really, really took it to another level as far as what he was dealing with. Either watching, his wife and his sister-in-law, go through what they went through, to all kind of personal experiences. It's part to do with just getting older too. We experience more things in life as we get older. Things that when you're younger, your dad and mom didn't really tell you this is what life's about, but it is. These horrible things happen all the time, and lyrically and musically, these things can be therapy, and these things can be healing powers as well. And man, like I said, Ed's lyrics are really impressive on this entire record. So
yeah, no, they really stood out to me in this particular record as I was listening to them. I knew something was going on, and then I did a little more research. In my research, I discovered that Ed did not even really want to be in a band. He had sent out Shine as a pitch for songwriting, and then it kind of took off. Is that how you remember it, or how did you guys get together?
That would have been that would have been 93 when he's talking about the first record that was also pitched as his singer-songwriter demo. When Ed was young, and you got to remember, me, Ed, and Dean have known each other my entire memory. I've known them, but no, of course, when Ed was young, he wanted to be in a band. He bought his first guitar. He worked endlessly. We used to use. Ed was 29, right, when we got signed. So people would be like, "Oh, what about this overnight success?" And we'd always say, "Well, yeah, it's 10 years of overnight success, right?" Ed worked tirelessly on his craft, whether it was at my father's studio, reel to reel, as head engineer, and working on his own songs there, or playing live. He played live all the time. I think what gets confused about that story is that he had worked on it for a long time, and he had a beautiful songwriter demo at this point where some of those songs are band songs. Some of them were completely done by Ed. And he was, he was definitely trying to get into any outlet possible with his skills. So yeah, there was a moment where, but the band was never really not a band either in the same breath. So
yeah,
if that helps, I don't know if that helps or not.
Well, it does. The thing that I love about it too is, I experienced a career renaissance in my industry around 35, and I love reading that he's like, well, I'm 30 years old. No one's going to sign a band that's, that has a 30-year-old as a lead singer. And I just, I love, for me, it was a very, I personally attached myself to that, end of it. So it's kind of neat. Now, you guys were younger though, or you're the same age, or how does that work?
Yeah. So, Ed's 6.5 years older than me. But we grew up in a tiny little town. I really would like a quintessential collective soul documentary so people can realize how small this circle was. They grew up a couple streets over from me. The Baptist church was in that same circle. And then my father's studio was in that same circle. And I'm telling you, it was no more than a third of a mile radius of all those things in this small town in Georgia. And without all of those ingredients, there is no collective soul. I think all of those ingredients were part of what made the band.
Who are your influences then?
Yeah, so I grew up mainly in the 80s. So the 80s influences, REM would have been real big to us because they were, right out of Athens. We were proud of that. U2, NXS, all the cool 80s stuff. Of course, Tom Petty, the big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of 70s and 60s. The Beatles are probably my biggest influence.
Mm-hmm.
Queen, Elton John, all those things are still really kind of the core of our favorites.
Yeah.
But we find, man, there's so much good music out there right now. And then, you've got all kind of good rock bands out there crushing it.
What's the studio process like? I mean, who's bringing songs in? I know you mentioned Ed being a primary songwriter, but you'd mentioned you guys bringing in tracks as well too. Is it a shared collective? Collective, huh? I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, where'd you get that word? Ed brings in a number of songs that are constructed, kind of the arrangements basically there. We'll tweak
mm-hmm.
it. We'll transform some parts and make it okay. Now it starts to sound like a collective soul song.
Mm-hmm.
And then every now and then there's certainly some songs that spring out of a jam session or a riff, and
mm-hmm.
we develop that into a collective soul tune too. And usually with those examples, Ed comes up with melodies, and he'll fake some words or maybe come up with one hook, and then he'll kind of fill in the blanks with lyrics later.
Off air, my co-host and I were talking to, and your band to us is one of those bands that is just deceptively successful. It's one of those things where you listen to a song. I took a girlfriend a long time ago to a concert, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know this band did that. I didn't know this band played this." And I said, yeah, that's I feel like what you guys are. I feel like you guys have had so many hits, but people wouldn't necessarily tie you with these hits. Is that something you guys feel, or how do you guys approach your own success?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been part of Collective Soul's thing, is that we started out wanting to be known for our music, and
mm-hmm.
we focused on songs, and we focused on how much music we could put out there. I mean, the first 5 years we recorded 4 records.
Yeah.
And we were always just chomping at the bit to do more music. And we wanted to be known for our music. And then somewhere along the line, maybe we didn't go out and hang out with enough, models, or maybe we didn't raise enough hell and get arrested or something. But yeah, I mean, still 25 years later, no doubt, almost every time, if somebody's never seen us live, or
mm-hmm.
they're fans, but they're not really hardcore fans, still to this day, 25 years later, I didn't know y'all played all those songs. So I mean,
what's the
is what it is, and it's a good issue to have, really. But we realized it years ago, and it's still there.
What's the tour? What's the set list like on tour?
The set list is, it's another good problem to have. Having over 100 songs at this point cataloged.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just, it's about celebrating life and getting everybody in the room and exchanging these energies and emotions, and getting everybody to sing along and forget about some of the other things going on in your life and just let go for a while, really. And as far as the songs we pick, we definitely don't shy away from the hits. We
mm-hmm.
appreciate the fact that, like I said, these songs have become the soundtrack to people's lives. So we're always excited to play the hits. We throw some new twists on there, like December is a very long version, and
mm-hmm.
we take the solo section out a little bit. But we're playing like 5 new tunes from Blood right now,
cool.
And we try to squeeze in some other deeper cuts, but as you mentioned, with all the hits, it kind of we just we try to make it fun for us, fun for the crowd, and play as many of the hits and as well as many of the new stuff and as many of the deeper cuts as we can. But God, there's just so many songs, we can't do them all.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, it's actually very remarkable too. I mean, you go down your discography, and it's like, wow, okay, yeah, there was this one. Oh yeah, I love this one. And and again, my co-host and I were just talking. He's like, oh, The World I Know is my favorite. Is his favorite track, and I'm like, oh, I love that song, but it's not my favorite. This is my favorite. He's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. I'm like, yeah, and then, it just, you go back and forth. You're like, wow, it's really, really impressive. So kudos to you guys. So we are a pop culture show. We talk about not just music, but we talk about just comics, movies, and TV. Are you into any of that stuff? Is the band into any of that stuff? What are you guys streaming these days? Are you, when you're on the tour bus? Is there anything pop culture related? Game of Thrones? Anything that?
Yeah, I was going to go straight to Game of Thrones. We were all hooked real big with that, and just love it. Love the whole thing. We're big Star Wars fans too. I mean, we grew up in the 80s. So,
Yeah.
I mean, somehow deep in my brain, I still think Star Wars is real somewhere in a far, far galaxy. It's like,
What did you think of the last season of Game of Thrones? Because that's actually one of the things we were talking about tonight, because it just won the Emmy, but a lot of fans are divided about, how it ended.
I think the writing was so brilliant. I think the storylines can go on and keep going on. And I think they decided to end it. And I'm not sure there would have been like a really perfect, smooth way to end it. I loved it. I loved some of the scenes, the Hound and the Mountain. I mean, that scene was amazing. I loved it. But I do feel like they had all of a sudden, the writers are like, well, we got to tie this thing up somehow. Let's just start tying it up. And they didn't. I mean, because they could have kept writing for seasons up on end. They just could have kept going. But it did have a little bit of that. We just got to tie things up. I don't know the best way to tie this up. Let's just tie it up.
Yeah, it definitely felt a little clunky in terms of, our argument was if they'd have just done 2 full seasons, I think everyone would have been happy. They, the shortened seasons, really they crammed a lot into those last, 2 seasons of 6 episodes.
And I think that's probably what people are feeling more than anything, how much they crammed in there. And some of the sloppy, a little bit, like you said, a little clunky, the way they tied some of the stuff together at the end. But. So
getting back to Blood real quick, and then again, I appreciate your time. The thing, again, I had mentioned at the beginning of the interview was how it seamlessly it fits into you guys' discography, and also just, it could have came out in the 90s. It could come out in 2019. You mentioned some good bands today. What are you listening to today, and what do you think the rock style is? Because I got to be honest with you, I can pick apart, being a rock music historian, I can pick apart just different eras and say this was this era and this was this era and there's a subgenre in this era. And I feel like today with streaming and with everything, I couldn't even tell you what
there's
the
not
sound.
A definitive style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I think you're onto something there. There really kind of isn't a definitive rock and roll style right now. That being said, it can be also a good thing to have so many different sounds and so many different influences coming at you. I mean, you got anything from Greta Van Fleet, which, harkening the days of Led Zeppelin, to, all kind of good bands out there. Young the Giant, I know they've been around a decade now, but I love that band. Great rock band. Not a lot of distorted guitars, but it's rock and roll.
Young the Giant is actually a very underrated band too. I got to interview them a few years ago, and they're awesome. I mean, I'm a
big fan, so yeah, I dig that.
What do you think? So you mentioned Greta Van Fleet. They're the only band that is commercially, I feel like, who hasn't been around for 20 years, making any kind of headway. Is there any other up and coming band that you guys have maybe heard of or listened to, or maybe, even got a chance to see at a festival or tour that we should be aware of?
I mean, up and coming, I'm probably going to think of 3 or 4 names right now. So we get off the thing. Royal Tusk is some friends of ours, and they're getting some good marks on there. They're getting some good, really good feedback on their second record out of Canada. So check out Royal Tusk. They just did some shows opening up for Slash
very
in the
cool.
States. So when the Canadian bands cross over to the States, I know something's good is happening for them.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, and I'll think of a few more when I get off the phone.
Well, Will, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking time out. You guys are in Huntington next, correct?
Or Huntington, New York, is that right? Yeah, we're in Concord, New Hampshire tonight. We're somewhere else tomorrow. I don't know, man. I'll be there though, wherever it is.
Well, really appreciate you taking some time out. Everyone out there, go pick up Blood. It's great. Go check out Collective Soul Live. They are amazing. Will Turpin, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Oh, look. Kid Harington's is fighting Cersei again.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? Ain't that something?
Are they gonna bring Daenerys in? Are they gonna?
Yes.
This is Marvel's attempt to
do it all.
Just to retcon the ending of Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Maybe so. Maybe this will be how they do it.
They're gonna do it.